What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lone Duck's Gun Dog Chronicles. I've got my good friend here. He's joining us to talk some quail, some South Carolina live action. This is David Snipes. He goes by Bunny, and so you're going to hear me call him Bunny the entire episode. But David Snipes, welcome to the show, bud. This is exciting.
Thanks for having me, Bob. I'm excited to be here.
So Bunny is a great friend of mine. Every winter for the last 9 or 10 years of me going down to Charleston, he and I train gun dogs together down there. Runs a pet business that basically transports pets, runs them on the four-wheeler, trains gun dogs, has a ton of fun. He is a hunting fool. And man, I'm just really excited to get you on the show. But the main focus of today's show is going to be on Quail Forever and the SC South Carolina initiative and some of the really cool things that you have done with your family farm. But first, do me a favor, give everybody a brief rundown of Bunny Snipes.
Like you said, we are here in Charleston, and my wife, Christina, and I live here with our two little girls, Kate and Olivia, and my business. I get to enjoy your company about 3 or 4 months a year, every year. And that's been honestly one of the best things for me ever. It's been awesome. Really, that's a highlight of my year when you come down. So that's awesome. But, yeah, we hunt a bunch and fish and do a lot of management at, my wife's family has a place about 2 hours from here, called Broomstraw, and it's been a work in progress for the last, 10 years or so that we've really put a lot of effort into bringing back wild quail as opposed to the put and release quail like a lot of other people are doing. And, it's become a passion, and now it's so fun to get to see my girls involved in it, and my, wife's cousins and my brother comes out there all the time. And it's just a lot of family and a lot of fun in the outdoors, a lot of friends.
What got you originally into, hunting over dogs and into quail and all that good stuff? Like what was kind of Bunny's upbringing?
Well, I was raised in the upstate of South Carolina and did hunting and stuff like that, but did a lot of shooting but never really had bird dogs. And actually, when I was at Clemson, we went on a little guys trip and went on a quail hunt at a release place, and just thought it was the coolest thing ever, seeing the dogs. And ever since then, have had my own dogs, and like Bob said, trained other people's dogs, and now get to work dogs that I've got dogs that Bob's trained in the past, and they've come back and I help keep them in shape. And it's just a great part of the sport that I really enjoy the dog work as much as the hunting itself. Just the shooting is the last part of it now.
Yeah. I think that's the maturity of it too, right? Like, when we're first getting into it, it's wham, bam, let's get limits and whatever the case may be, or travel and being with your buds. But let's talk about Sugar. Sugar Stick is so sweet. That's your first duck dog.
Yeah, Sugar is definitely the reason that I have made a career, and also probably more passionate about birds than anything. I'd like to deer hunt a little bit, but I only go a couple times a year. It's just not really my thing. I really enjoy the bird aspect and retrieving and watching the dogs work more than anything. But yeah, I sold a business in 2016 and kind of started training Sugar myself, and had some buddies, that said, hey, if you're working this dog, would you help me with this, with mine? And, I wasn't doing anything. I was kind of just working her and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And man, just fell in love with it. And it was obviously now it's pretty much all I talk about. So it's the way it is.
What kind of dog is Shug?
Shug is a lab, and then I also have a English setter out of Bob's dog, Coco. Yeah. So I've got a flusher, or I've got a pointer and a flusher. I actually taught Shug how to flush because after a couple times of leaving her at home, my wife called me and said, hey, you got to come back and get her. I can't leave her at home right now while you're going to work the bird dog. Sugar doesn't understand this. So
Sugar is a British lab from Wild Rose. Really nice dog, man. She's been one of those that was a great dog to learn on. I feel like you and her embody the unspoken bond like nobody else, man. Like if you're getting a Chick-fil-A sandwich, so is Shug.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I've had friends call me before and said, hey, I just saw you at the red light. Where's Sugar? She's right here beside me. She's just sleeping in the front seat. She's laid down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was actually her birthday yesterday. She turned 9. Dang. So I know it's hard. I'm starting to see her slow down a little bit, and starting to see where the second and third day of hunting in a row starts to get her a little bit, and where she's still all about it and wants to go, but that part is creeping up fast, and I hope hopefully we get a couple more really good years, and then we'll put her on a retirement track of her just picking up the easy ones and letting another dog pick the hard ones up, hopefully.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how much I guess what I think everybody needs to know is Bunny Snipes a killer.
Yeah.
Bunny Snipes.
No, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Unturned during hunting season. I mean, from dove to wood ducks to some of the like illustrious badass places in South Carolina, and Shug gets to go on all these adventures with you. Let's kind of talk about some of your favorite hunts or places you've gone with.
Oh yeah, I get being in the business I'm in, and just very fortunate to have really good friends that I have some places that I get invited to that are super special, and I don't take those for granted. I take Sugar with me, and I always really, it just brings a smile to my face when somebody says, come hunting with you. Hey, bring Sugar, you want to come and we're shooting Friday, bring Sugar. And that part, if I don't shoot the bird and I just get to bring Sugar, it's more, that's the part that I just love. And yeah, I've got some great friends with some really, really good dove hunting up in Bennettsville that we do every year when we open up the season. And it's now, the Rogers family invites a whole group of us up there, and we do, it's more of like a weekend experience than it is a dove hunt. We have a jump castle set out and have barbecue, do a pig and do all this stuff. And the wives and the kids are there, and, and then we leave there, and my wife's family's place is called Broomstraw. And we go there and hunt. So from that opening day of dove season is really, everybody has their thing, and that's doves and quail are my thing. I mean, it's one of the special places that, it's just, that's where I love to do it. You can have your deer hunts all you want.
Let's put some numerical numbers to Sugar.
She's probably in 5 to 6. I think, I know I stopped counting at like 3,000.
Holy, so, like I said, he a killer.
When we finished dove season this past year, I went hunting with some buddies. I drove to Oklahoma and shot ducks, then came back and finished out the last, week and a half or 2 weeks. And it was pretty impressive. It was like, 250 birds or something over the last month of the season, just from now, you got to think when you're hunting with a group of 4 guys and killing, 10 birds a piece or whatever in the dove field. I mean, everybody's not shooting limits, but a lot of times we'll, shoot together and all that. So it's, she can rack some numbers up, you know.
That's a lot of feathers.
What's her best 3 qualities?
Man, you know, she is not a dog that is going to run out there. Like I've trained with you enough to know there's the ones that are the go full steam, 250-yard blind to go attack a goose by the face. And she's really not that dog. She is the more just even keeled, loves to hunt, but you know, and make no mistake about it, you know, she's got that killer in her where when one drops, she wants to get it every single time, but she's never, you know, too up. Honestly, I tell people all the time, I mean, I hunt more than most people. You know, I think I hunted over 40 times for doves last year in our season.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, you know. So she gets a lot of chances, you know.
Sure.
But she you know, as much as I hunt, I tell people all the time when I'm training their dog or working their dog, you know, I say, you know, no matter how much you hunt, your dog is still a family dog 95% of the time, even if you hunt a lot, you know, and she's my best friend. She goes with me everywhere. And I mean, she goes on vacation with our family. She goes to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. She does, you know, whatever we're doing, she's doing.
Yeah.
So that would be her best attribute for sure. And man, she loves a sausage biscuit. She just, you know, she loves a sausage biscuit. She'll sit right there. And if I'm eating one, she's getting one. So that post-hunt sausage biscuit is happening.
That's awesome. Yeah, she is. You know, Wild Rose has their logo on it. You know, it's a gentleman's gun dog, and I think I've trained a bunch of them. You know, and a bunch of British Labs, and some were piss and vinegar and firecrackers, and other ones were lower end drive. I think Sugar, if I had to give her a compliment, it would be she's that perfect. She's that medium rare.
Yeah,
when it's her
medium rare for sure.
When it's her time to go, she's going hard and she's having a time doing it. When it's not her turn, she's not at all.
She's not spinning circles and freaking out, you know, and she's just like, hey, I'm here. You know, and that's part of it that I do love is, you know, they always say, I guess you only get one. So I sure hope that's not the case, but she, you know, as good a hunter as she is, she's an even better dog. She's just a companion, you know, she's with me all the time. And I think that, you know, we've talked about this a lot in the past that the training's great, but having them once you really, you know, settle in and they're with you. I mean, you know, I see Memph, she's cruising, you know, it's just, that's the way it is. When they're your dog and they're with you all the time in the truck and everything, they want to please you more than anything. And that's
the best.
You're there. Yeah, that's the best. It really is.
It's the best. Yeah. Tell me about Coco.
Yeah, I was just going to say, all right, let's
go. Oh, man.
Because Andy's at my house still. Bob and I, we don't co-own Andy, but I joke that, you know, we co-own her, I suppose. And so she spends the winter, for other people listening, spends the winters when Bob's down south at my house, and she lives the life. Sleeps on my pillow, gets all the snacks from my son, dropping things on the floor, all the good stuff, right? She lives the life. And so Coco, like by association, has a very soft spot in my heart.
So pretty much what you just described is to a T Coco's life. My dad loves Coco more than anybody, and Coco lives with us. But like, if I'm going anywhere, Coco is going, my dad is absolutely getting Coco, and she's coming and chilling at his house instead of, you know, there has never been a question of her going to the pound going to the kennel or anything, you know what I mean? The overnight kennel or anything. That's not happening. She's going straight to my dad's, but no, she's, you know, it's interesting to see a young dog, working on, I taught her on pigeons and some release birds just to get her drive up and teach her what to do. But we hunt wild birds. So she's been, she doesn't necessarily get as many opportunities as others, but she's really done well with the opportunities she's had. And she's not great yet, but she's showing potential in every, she's only hunted 2 seasons. So, I mean, she's getting better and better,
Yeah. I think let's digress on that topic for a second. The benefits of really training, I'm air quoting everybody, training / hunting, but using those wild birds to work the dog versus planted birds and setting them up. And
I mean, it's just 2 different animals. It's 2 different complete things. If you see bird dogs that are only on release birds and they're, taking bait, whatever you want to call it, kick and shoot. I mean, that if they're only doing that, they're going to just creep so close and, the birds just don't flush the same. And it's just not the same. The dog never, I personally think, obviously I'm sure most people would, but it's, it's just, the dog will never get to the point that it will if it's hunting wild birds, if it's only hunting release birds.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's the blessing and the curse, right? Like, we're talking to folks all across the country and technically the world, I guess, where they don't have a lot of wild birds. And so they have to use homing pigeons, chucker, quail that are pen raised. And to your point, they aren't flushing from dog pressure. They're flushing because we make them flush. And those dogs have a window of learning once they get to wild birds where they overpressure the bird and the bird pops and you don't get to shoot. And so if you have the opportunity, which, we'll dive into with you, Bunny, in a little bit, but, get them doing the basics well, get them some understanding. But the faster we can transition to a wild bird that you like to hunt, whether it be grouse, woodcock, quail, pheasant out west, whatever the case may be, those birds are going to react to that dog a whole heck of a lot different than your dog trap release system, your DT release system, your kick trap, your whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, 100%.
Your timing on releasing it and when they wind it and everything. And also, I'm going to side note this in a training aspect. Your dog's first 2 or 3 seasons, you have to give them grace when they bump a bunch of wild birds, because those birds are not wanting to be pointed. They're not wanting to be shot. And so they're weary. And so if your dog is slamming points in your back field or your training group or whatever on pen birds and pop traps, and then you go out grouse hunting, woodcock hunt, well, woodcock sit pretty dang tight, but any other wild bird is going to basically flush well before that dog stops on point when they've only been trained on pen birds. But
yeah, and I've been very fortunate too. I mean, 2 of my buddies, Matt Lee and Ricky Atkinson, that I hunt with a lot, have absolutely phenomenal dogs. And I mean, I'm training Coco as I'm going, but I mean, when we go hunting, their dogs are elite, and it's just, it's a whole different world to get to see them. And I think it helps Coco learn, and, we put them down together and see what happens. And Coco's messed it up more times than not, but she's not the only one. Everyone, all dogs mess it up sometimes, but I mean, as she gets better and better, hopefully as theirs that role might switch with their next puppy, 4 years from now, when she's 7, she may be the one leading the charge and have one of their young dogs be in the back, So,
yeah, that's the cool part about having dogs and like, not generationally, but I guess having levels of dogs every few years with buddies and things like that. Like, it's always changing.
Yeah. And also having good buddies that get it too. I mean, they hunt, they hunt a lot too. They have dogs that they have retrievers, they have pointers, all flushers and all that. So, if Coco goes out there and does mess one up, or if Sugar messes one up, it's no big deal. Cool. If their dog messes one up, I'm the same way. It's like, all right, cool. It happened. Let's go find another one.
Bunny, let's dip into the Quail Forever. Can you give a rundown of Quail Forever and South Carolina, which you're.
Yep. So yeah, we've got 4 chapters right now. And then we have 2 more that are about to open. We've got a Newberry chapter about to open and a Columbia chapter about to open in the next, year or so, hopefully 6 months or so. The Newberry chapter actually is opening next month, but the Columbia hopefully pretty soon. And then I'm the president of the Low Country chapter, which is out of Charleston. We've got a PD chapter with a great buddy of mine, Raleigh, running that one. And then we've got Mark Coleman up in the upstate. And I think they're technically upstate chapter. I'm not sure if it's Spartanburg or Greenville, but I think it's Spartanburg. And, it's just kind of a thing that everybody is working towards the same goal. And Quail Forever being, one aspect. Then you've got the South Carolina Bob White Initiative guys and all everybody, there's a whole group of people all with this idea that if we work and try, we can bring some birds back to the state. And, there's success and there's some areas that we're still trying, but if you don't try, it's not going to happen. So we got to keep pushing and keep improving and keep adding a little bit every year and getting better.
Let's talk about that. South Carolina was a mecca, same with Georgia, a mecca for wild quail, wild Bob White quail. What was the shift? And maybe some time frames or so, but like it wasn't 5 years ago that they started easing, going away, but maybe it was in the 50s or 70s. But what was some of the shifts in agriculture and culture that put a hurting on the South Carolina quail?
Yeah, I am, before we get into this, I will say 100% I am not a biologist. I'm a redneck who is interested in trying my best to improve stuff. So it is not, what I say is not the word for sure, but from everything that everybody says, it was in the 80s and it just, a lot of people blame it on agriculture. And I think that some of that is a little true of the cleanliness of fields. That in the 80s and stuff, there wasn't these pristine looking fields that are just clean as can be. They were dirty. They had, weeds and shrubs growing along the edges and stuff like that. And that might have something to do with it, but the people who say the farmers are the problem are the absolutely most incorrect people. I think the farmers are our only hope, honestly. If we don't get the guys with all the land and all the equipment and all the, desire to see them again involved and have them on our side and have them hunting, then we got no chance. That's the only chance we have, is to get the guys to group together and to, make little changes maybe. But, everybody, if you ask 10 people, you might get a bunch of different answers. It's fire ants, it's this, it's that. But, I think overall, just the lack of habitat has definitely hurt birds. We're trying, Quail Forever is trying to help on public land as well as through offering biologists to come to private land and to maybe guide people to say, hey, if you did this little change to your field edges, or if you did this in the timing and stuff, to try to help the private guys to, bring birds back on their farms too. But there's not one answer. There's not a hard lightning bolt that said, this is when the quail died. They just went downhill and, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. If you think about the world that we live in, subdivisions have grown up. Grandpa Jim sold his farm that was 1,000 acres, and now there's 150 homes on it. And the farm next door did the same thing. That's a big one. I think the fire ants is probably one of them.
I mean, prime example, you and I, get to enjoy Wingate, and right down the road from Wingate, Dr. Ed has told me about, we went in there and hunted birds at this farm. We went in there and hunted that farm, and I mean, that's one example, but I mean, you hear those stories of the old days of people just hunting for miles. They would drop a car and then just go. And, hopefully we can find little pockets of people with like interest and get back to improving it and bringing some birds back in those areas first. And you know how it is when people see success, they're like, oh, well, maybe we should do some of that.
I'll pat you on the back so you don't have to, but you are one of the hardest working guys I know that has become very, very passionate on this subject. And Broomstraw and the surrounding farms of Broomstraw pulled together to make habitat and make a valiant effort to improve the habitat and the farming on the edges.
I'm very fortunate. My wife's family, her granddad was a big quail hunter, and that their farm was just in the right area. It was in the right habitat. It's in Lee County. So yeah, I wish I could show you on my map that I made that no one can see.
You don't have to specify anymore, but Lee County.
And above 95 in the Midland area of the state. But the sandy soil right there is really good. And, there's a lot of agriculture right there. And that's what I said about the farmers. They're the key. But we started, working probably 10 years ago on Broomstraw itself. And now that we have a lease around it, we have a little bigger footprint. And then one of my best buddies on earth is Ricky Atkinson. He's right beside us, and they're even a bigger footprint. So like their whole, their operation they're an agricultural row crop operation, but he also loves to hunt. So you've got him, and then you've got another guy on the other side, Mr. Whip Player, and he loves to bird hunt too. And, you get a couple guys together that start having a common interest, and you get, field edges and little things. And Mr. Witt actually farms my wife's family's place for row crops. And, he could easily say, no, I'm planting corn all the way to the edge, but what I have been able to show him or express to him is that hey, if you could leave me 10 yards here, or 15 yards here around these edges, then we could plant stuff that when you harvest your crop and it goes away, we still have a buffer of a crop for the birds to use all through the winter and to help get them through. And Ricky does the same thing on his farm. If he's got a giant bean field, he'll leave a few strips of beans around the edge.
So real quick, let's slow it down because I don't really know what you're talking about. So that means the listener doesn't either. So when you say we did stuff, describe that. Is it controlled burns? Is it cutting, doing timber to open things up? What was the 10 years ago? You said Broomstraw was the start, and then you added the other two farmers that buffered it. So with Broomstraw, what were some of the strategies on that farm that kickstarted it?
Well, for starters, I will say I didn't start it. Those guys have been living it for 30 years. You know what I mean? They've been farmers for generations. So to get them quote unquote involved, but they're the ones who were already there doing it. It was just more meeting them and getting to be buddies with them to expand. It's not like I convinced them to do this. They've got it in their blood. They love that land more than anything. But yeah, so we met with some of the biologists from the Bob White Initiative, and they came out and made us a management plan. And that's one of the things that Quail Forever and the Bob White Initiative here in South Carolina is cool. Like anybody who wants one, if you've got some land, you know, we can send a biologist out for free. It doesn't cost you a dime. They'll come out, they'll ride around your property with you, look and say, hey, you know, this is a scale of 1 to 10. You know, if you wanted to go full quail operation, here's 10. But 99% of people don't want to do that. They want to be at 3 or 4 or 5, maybe, you know, and so that's the way they can say, hey, if you've got this opportunity here, why don't you do a little brood patch here on this old logging deck? Or, you know, little things like that that can really improve your property. And they're going to guide you and tell you how to do it. And, you know, one of the biggest things first was getting some timber cut and opening up the canopy so that the grass can actually grow and you can get some grass in there as opposed to it being hardwood leaves and pine straw. You know, I mean, when it's so thick, no sunlight can get in, you can't get any good grass. So you got to do that kind of first, if you may. But yeah, the Andy Krieg came down and made us a management plan, and really, heck, we started and kind of went, you know, full throttle with it and said, let's do, you know, we do food plots, we do brood patches, we do control burns, brood patch. So imagine like going into the middle of some cover and then you make a little brood patch in there, which is usually like ragweed and goldenrod and stuff like that. Maybe some, you know, a little bit of briars mixed in there. You don't really want that, but a lot of times it happens when you winter disc. But it's a place for the babies to go, you know, thrive. So you want to have like habitat where the nesting can happen. And that would be, you know, your control burn area that's got good grasses and good forbs in it. And they, you know, they'll nest in there. Well, if you have that cover and then you can do a brood patch, which is, imagine like having a little plant that, let's say, you know, is a couple feet tall. And if you looked at it from our perspective as a human, you know, it would look like a sea of green. But then underneath that, there is open ground where the little tiny quail, you know, imagine like a ping pong ball quail when it's a baby, going underneath those plants and being able to get the bugs that all these plants attract. They eat the bugs in their baby, and they don't get picked off from the top because those plants are, you know, the leaves are covering. So it's just one aspect of it, but it's pretty neat. But you want to have those by cover, escape cover, so they can like come in there and feed and get away and then fly if something comes to try to get them and go, you know, either run out when they're that small, they can't fly yet, but as they get a little bigger, but it's great for turkeys too.
One of the things that I'm hearing is if you're managing for quail, you're also getting more turkeys. You're probably getting deer.
Well, and you're getting forbs coming back, which is great food for deer. I mean, you know, I'm not a deer expert. You know, we have a lot of big ag fields there, so we get lucky. You know, a bean field is going to have deer in it. If you got a 20-acre bean field in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina, it's probably going to have deer in it. You know,
but it's habitat for one thing, but it's also benefiting 80 other.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, turkey and quail go hand to hand. I mean, it's one of those things where if you're a baby turkey or you're a baby quail, you're kind of on the same trajectory at first, if that makes sense, you know?
You had mentioned that it's free to have people come out to your property and kind of take a look under the hood and give you some advice on how you can do a better job. Like you said, from scale 1 to 10, like how bad of the bone you want to get with it. But if I'm listening to this right now, like how big of a property do I need to have to be able to say it's worth it calling someone?
Well, I mean, that depends on your neighbors. You know, if you've got 10 acres, but your buddy has 20 acres and your buddy has 50 acres and, you know what I mean? And you've got a group of, you know, 8 or 10 guys that are around each other that kind of have a common interest, then you absolutely, you could do some stuff together that would really improve your whole area. I don't want to put a number on it because I'm not a biologist. I mean, you do need some land to really make them thrive. But if you can get, guys together doing it, and make a little co-op or whatever, or just some buddies that talk and say, hey, let's all, I'm burning my woods. Can you come and help me? No problem. Sure. I'll come help you. When we burn yours next week, I'll come and help you,
Let's, for sake of the story, can you kind of describe how big Broomstraw is and those surrounding farms that agreed to do this with you and farmed it accordingly to have the weed edges and stuff like that? How much contiguous acreage is now what you guys are managing for quail?
Well, I mean, it's not like every field has done everything, you know what I mean? But it is a big track. There's Broomstraw is 540 acres, and then we lease another about 800 around it. So our footprint is like, right at 1,500 or something, 1,400 and some change. And then the guys beside us, they're bigger farmers than we are. They're, like I said, they're leasing our farm to farm. So it's not, I'm not a farmer, but, those guys, they're just out there. They just see it. I mean, you got a guy that's driving a sprayer and he's like spraying beans and he sees a little covey of quail. He's got two options to either keep going or maybe he backs up and goes around, and those guys do it. That's just the way they are. They just love it. And they love seeing them. They're sons, they're workers. The guys that work for them even know that, when they see quail or they see turkeys and they see a baby fawn, but I think that just goes with being an outdoorsman,
Great point.
They all love to shoot birds. They all love to deer hunt and love to turkey hunt. And, that just goes generally to being a manager. I mean, if you manage property for one thing or not, it's usually going to benefit the others, like we were saying.
With the farm, we talked about the edges of the field. I feel like when me and you quail hunted years ago, 2-3 years ago, whatever, you kind of were educating me as we walked and pointed out those field edges were imperative. And it's imperative because that bird can come and go and eat, but had a safety net over top of it from hawks and other predators. What are you planting on those field edges that you've seen have the most success?
Well, we do sorghum usually around the edges, and part of that's a cost thing. I mean, sorghum's pretty cheap relatively, and it provides cover and like it's a great food for them when they go in there and feed on stuff too. It kind of provides like a little bushy area for them in the summer as it's growing. It's got leaves like a corn plant coming up. And then, like I said, when Ricky cuts his bean field, he usually leaves a couple strips of beans. And, there's some people that say beans are like not good for quail and all that, but every time we hunt, we find them in the beans. So, those biologists know what they know out of a book, but I'm going to tell you right now, those tiny little strips on the edges, and that might just be a feeding thing with some cover involved, with some grasses involved too. But most of our field edges are mostly sorghum.
Very cool. Very cool. When you started this adventure 10 years ago, how many coveys were on Broomstraw around, Robert? Good question.
I have no clue of the surrounding, I mean, heck, I didn't even know those guys really well, much less hunt with them. And there's some guys around us that, are 5-10 miles down that have been doing it for 30 years that they have seen the drop, and then now they're seeing increases and all that. But there's I know, we would hear birds like whistling, we would hear random birds here and there, and it was not like I wasn't even doing covey counts and all that stuff, so I don't actually know the answer to that. It was more just like, hey, we heard a bird whistling the other day, cool, and then now we've gotten to the point where we're doing actual covey counts, where we're going in there and doing whistle counts in the spring and summer, and then coming back in the fall and doing a covey count, and having, like I said, some of my buddies come and help me do that, and a couple of biologists have come and helped, and that's pretty neat to see. I think there's there's probably 15 or so coveys between our little area.
Really cool.
Yeah. Now we've never found that many on a hunt by any means, but they're there, and just because they're there, I mean, we find the same couple ones, and I mean, you can't go in there and just murder them, or you won't have them anymore.
That brings me. Remember the old man and the boy? That's the right. Old man and the boy.
Yeah, it is.
It's a Rourke. Yeah, that's
it.
You
probably got it somewhere lost in this room, but
no, I put it in a bookshelf. Bud, I cleaned this off. It's just a tiny bit. I have a bookshelf and I put books in it.
Old Man and the Boy is a good one, though.
Old Man and the Boy. Yep. So anywho, one of his things that he teaches this young boy that's hunting with him is you aren't striving to go kill every quail. You take one or two out of a covey and you leave that covey alone so it can grow again. And
100%. Yeah. 100%. And we, like I said, I pretty much hunt with Ricky every hunt we hunt, and we'll bounce. We might hunt at Broomstraw for a few minutes, and then we might jump over to one of his farms where he knows there's a covey, and we'll go hunt that covey. And if we find it great, we might kill one bird out of it, and then we might hunt to another, jump over to another field and hunt that covey or two over there. It's not like you're going in there like it would if it was like pigs or something. You're like, we're going in there to kill all of them. That's just not the case.
Yeah. You're probably, if you hit a covey up a few times in the season, you're leaving.
Yeah. 100%.
That's kind of how I grouse hunt too up here. You don't want to good covers because there's not that many birds in. And if you go to the same place every time, you're harassing them, if you will. And on public land, you don't know who else is harassing them. And so if I've kind of had my share of fun and or take a bird out of it, I'm going to let it rest for a while before I go back. Or if I take a bird or two out of it,
might not go back at all,
Right. So to your point a few minutes ago, it's like conservation, it's management, it's enjoying the land, not taking everything from it. So
and that circles back to the Quail Forever stuff. I mean, we're talking about those brood patches. I think we had a donor out of Charleston, Rivers and Glen, that just sponsored 90 acres of brood patches between 9 different WMAs, public land. There's quail focal areas in the state where they are it might be like a big WMA, and then they have a portion of it managed specifically, or that area geared more towards quail. And we just did, in the past month, we've just done, I believe 9 different WMAs. It might be 8. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but almost 90 acres of brood patch. And that's like ragweed seed and all that. And heck, I've got a notebook with 5 or 6 more projects that are coming up that we're about to do this summer to try to improve. And, every chance we can add a little bit more. I mean, Quail Forever is awesome about that. Like, the money gets to stay in South Carolina. Very little bit goes back to the corporate office to run the show there. I get that. But most of all, they're like, talk to the biologist and figure out what y'all need to do. And then we've got some great partners and all that. And we go and figure out what we can improve on and then start funding it.
Talk a little bit about Rivers and Glen, because they hosted an event at Seawee this year that was very fun, and I appreciated being invited to. Thank you very much. And thank you to Will from Project Upland for the invite on that. But talk about Rivers and Glen and their initiative to just be a part of the conservation.
Oh, and that event, I was there. That was actually the Rough Grouse Society. I mean, that was, or maybe it was American Woodcock Society. I can't remember, but I was invited to that too. And I'm friends with those guys, and we all have the same common interest of bird hunting and bird dogs. And our whole group got done. Our Quail Forever group got done with something, and we left there and all went to that as a unit to show support too. But yeah, Francisco and Owen and Luke and all those guys at Rivers and Glen, man, they've been, since the beginning, we've been doing this. I think this is my third year. They've just been as good as you could ever ask for. Everything that we, want to do, if it's, hey, can we have a little event here at the store? We need to do this. It's just always been that way. And we actually give out an award each year in South Carolina called the Willie McRae Award. And we just gave it to Francisco this year at Seawee at the event. So that was pretty cool. It's like our top honor each year for somebody who just has really done a lot for conservation. And I was very privileged to get to hand him that statue this year.
Really cool. Your event at Seawee is by far one of the most fun events. Everybody who probably listens to this podcast has been to a DU event, or whatever. But Quail Forever, they're not every day. I feel like every month we could go to a DU event.
Yeah.
You put it on. Oh, Bunny likes to throw down, and he knows how to throw down. We eat good. We got good music. We're drinking good. And the fundraising, the things that you bring to the auction tables, you don't just do the little stuff.
No. We had a Parker this year. We had a New England Firearms. We call it the Bob White Boogie for a reason. We want to get down, but the cool thing about it is that people respond. We have gotten more and more each year. We've raised more and more each year, and we have great, just the guys that have been coming now for the last couple of years, almost all of them come again. They're already texting me, hey man, we can't wait to see you next year. So it's, when you have a fun event like that and you get the right people. And a lot of my buddies have stepped up. I really, some of my best friends here in Charleston, they just have gone above and beyond and really made that event special. It's a lot of good people in that room.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an honor to be there. Kevin and I are going to Argentina.
I was going to say, Bunny.
I was about to say, Lunduk bought an Argentina hunt. That was awesome.
Speaking of trying to be a buddy and help out, Bob was trying to help.
I was run up
the bid and accidentally was like, wait, how come people stop bidding? I win. I guess we're going to Argentina.
Yeah.
Well, and man, there's worse things in life than going to an Argentina trip,
Well, you're telling me Bob paid for it.
Exactly.
Right off.
I was about to say, that sounds like a business trip to me if I've ever heard one.
It is. Lone Duck,
just trying to donate
international travel.
Yeah. Trying to help conservation.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of dancing that edge on chaos at those events of I'll bid on that. I see this guy really wants it. I'll hit him up a couple extra hundo and get it, get the bids going. But no, it's just such a fun event. And like you said, the community, Bunny, you have done an unbelievable job in your life of creating good friendships. The rapport you build with people is truthful. It's heartfelt, and you give a crap. And that's why people come to support you at those events. And then they bring their friends, and all of a sudden you've got the biggest, if not top 3 biggest Quail Forever banquets in the country year after year.
I honestly don't know the numbers, but I mean, we do. It's a good one. It's definitely a good one for sure. And there's some bigger ones, you know, some of those events down in Texas and stuff like that, in Georgia, and Tallahassee has a really big chapter. I gotta give a shout out. My regional director, Kenny Barker, is absolutely, you know, become a true friend. And I honestly if he was not doing it, I wouldn't do it. He is an amazing person, and he's damn good at his job. He knows what he's doing, and he runs some big ones, you know, down in Tallahassee, down in Albany, Georgia, I believe it is. And he just gets it. I mean, he just, you know, we do an event together and all that. And I'm like hanging out with him the Wednesday and the Thursday before, and still wanting to, you know what I mean? And I mean, it's like a friend. I mean, he really has become a good friend. I talk to him all the time on the phone, you know, and it's just, when you got somebody like that guiding you, and he's really, you know, made it, I don't want to say easy to succeed, but he has set us up to succeed. You know, he has really put us in the place where if you do this and this, and then, you know, it's fun to hunt with him. Heck, he comes hunts with us, you know, and it's just, it's a great relationship, and he's a big part of it.
Step away from quail for a second, because me and you have a love for the pointy billed.
Oh my God.
And by the way, I'm doing the woodcock boogie, whatever we want to call it.
That little gif or whatever it's called, when the woodcock's doing the dance across the road, is probably my favorite one in the whole world.
The old timber doodle, baby.
Yeah.
That's another thing that we both love and enjoy. And I feel like South Carolina, I mean, it's a migratory bird.
We don't have any woodcock here. Don't come to South Carolina. I'm just kidding.
I feel you. I feel you. But how did you get, like, where did the woodcock come into the game? Like, how did you know that from turkey, deer guy, duck guy, would be like, you know what, I'm going to go shoot a woodcock?
You know, that's honestly how I really got into bird hunting. One of my best buddies who does timber, Billy Reynolds, came and he was looking at the timber at Broomstraw, and he was calling me, and he's like, hey man, there's some woodcock over there. Like, he didn't have a dog. He was marking timber. He's like, I flushed the woodcock. Y'all should go look. So I called my other buddy, Matt Lee, who is absolutely sick with it. Just probably one of the best bird dog guys that I've ever met in my life, if not the best. He has great dogs, but he's in it too. I mean, he goes all over the country. I'm not going to say where he goes because he might get mad at me, but he goes on hunts.
Well, we've had Andy Wimet on the show.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, him and Andy are great friends, and I've gotten to be buddies with Andy and them because they've come and hunted with us, and they come to South Carolina every year for a woodcock hunt. And, but yeah, so Matt is, I called Matt and said, hey, Billy said there's some woodcock in there. Let's see, and my sign fell.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. All right.
So I called Matt Lee and said, hey, let's go in there and see what there is. And we did, and we found some, and it was like right before the season. We were just walking with the dogs to see if we could find some. And I don't remember the exact details, but we found some 20 minutes after we started, and basically said, hey, let's, it kind of went like, let's get out of here. They're here. Yeah. So, then we went back and we started doing it. And, that's when I didn't even have Coco at that time. I mean, that's when I was just taking Sugar to flush and retrieve just to give her a reason to come, and fell in love with it, really. I mean, we had a group of guys that I was talking about, my brother and the Rogers and those guys, and Will Tuberville, we would doodle hunt. We call it Doodle Fest. Everybody would come up and, we'd hang out and cook steaks and then go woodcock hunting. And once we started doing that after a couple of years, we were like, all of us were like, dang, this is pretty fun. So, but yeah, it's, the woodcock, I will always love finding a woodcock because like you said, they hold great. It's just so fun to do it. And we actually, I will say, have not had as much success lately at Broomstraw with the woodcock because we kind of I don't know how to say it, but we kind of converted the woods more towards quail focused, and they really like a thicker, more cover, more reeds and stuff like that. So we've actually lost some of our best, some of our woodcock habitat, but yeah, it's give or take. There's no 100 answer, but yeah, woodcock are special, man. They're a fun way to introduce someone also because they hold and you get to see them.
All right, let's get into some listener questions. All right.
Oh gosh.
Here we go. All right. Tunco or setters or pointers?
Setters. You knew where I was going there.
KJB21972. How cool does it feel to be? How does it feel to be the coolest Quail Forever chapter president in the nation?
Oh God, that's Kenny. That's Kenny Barker right there. I knew some smart ass friends were going to have some questions on here.
All right. How does it feel?
Oh no, I'm not saying that. We're all good. We have a fun time together.
All right. It's like when you put your questions in here and ask about mustaches and where.
Well, I do it to you all the time. I guess payback is a B.
Yeah, exactly. All right. My buddy, Jeff from Georgia, favorite gun when hunting quail?
I have been hunting with my wife's father's Sweet 16 a good bit. And it's just more that, he's passed away now and I've enjoyed hunting with that. This past year, I actually switched it up and hunted with a little over and under 410 some. And, that was pretty sporty. That was, shooting those little kick and shoot ones is one thing, but shooting a wild bird with a 410, that picture you posted on Instagram, it's an ATI 410. That thing is slick. And, it's a entry level gun that if it gets busted up, it's not the end of the world. But, the Sweet 16's got a special spot for me. And that's mostly because of how awesome a father-in-law he was to me.
All right. Our friend Grayson, Lost Highway Gun Dog, says flusher or pointer for gnarly / older loblolly cuts. Before you answer the question, Rush Yankees, what's a loblolly?
So like a loblolly is a type of pine. And I'm thinking when he says loblolly cuts that he would probably means, I may be off on this, just what I would think what he means is that they did a clear cut maybe, and the loblollies are all read the question again for me, Bob. I just want to hear how he put it.
Flusher or pointer for gnarly / older loblolly cuts.
Yeah. All right. So what I think he's talking about, I'm pretty sure, would be like, they went in there and clear cut an area and there's a sweet spot. Okay. So for like year 1, it's kind of bare dirt and it's growing back, but year 2 and 3, it's really actually great quail habitat usually. Not just growing back, like you're not doing anything for it. But by year 4 and 5, it's starting to get too nasty and thick and they really can't use it as well. But I would say he's probably talking about like year 2 or 3, where it's just a cutover that's just got a bunch of stuff, man. And it's just hard hunting. That's a hard way to hunt. I guess I would say if you've got both, and I hunt with both. So, having a, I will say you can do it with a flesher. I don't know that you can really do it, or I should say, like, having both's the best answer. But if you don't have a flesher, it's going to be hard because they'll run on you. And I mean, if you don't have a pointer, you might never find them. But if you've got a dog that'll go in there and kind of quarter, like your fleshing dog will actually do some quartering, then I would probably say flesher. If you're just walking around with old Jim Bob the lab and he has no idea what's going on, it's going to be tough either way. So,
all right, David Bunny Snipes, I want to just say thank you again for coming on this show, man. You're one of my best friends. You're high integrity, high character, great dude. It's enjoyable just to spend time with you, and to share our friendship with everybody that tunes in is huge. I also want to say thank you for all the effort that you put into Quail Forever. I know, I'm with you during the heat of the seafood banquet.
Yeah, you get to see about the month to build up.
Month build up. It's a lot of stress. You put a ton of time into it while running a business, while being a great dad and husband. And so, I think that's something that everybody needs to remember, whether it is DU, Pheasant Forever, Quail Forever, RGS, American Woodcock Society, whoever is in charge of that stuff, it's taking them hours and hours and hours and hours a week away from their job, their family. And we all should shake their hands at one of these events and just say, hey, thank you for your time, because you bust your ass to make it a great event and to raise money for a great cause. And then on top of it, you're doing the conservation on your property and surrounding property. So you're a gentleman and a scholar, my friend.
Well, management's a lifestyle, not a hobby. You got to be about it. I mean, in the summertime when everybody else is doing stuff and I'm the only one out there, and I call Ricky and say, hey, let's get this done. And he's out every time. Yes. That's when it's about. Walker never shows up on work days.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Where can everybody find you? And where can everybody learn more about like the SC initiative and Quail Forever?
All right. So SC Quail Forever is like our state Instagram, Facebook account. You can obviously Quail Forever and Pheasants Forever are our national accounts, which will be able to get you to us eventually. There's also the South Carolina Bob White initiative, which is a great, kind of collaborative group of all the organizations working towards a common goal. And then I'm Bunny Snipes 84. If you need anything specific in South Carolina that I can help you, I'll be glad to, if I can't answer it, I'll point you to the person who can. I promise you that.
You can also check out a couple Two Tree Lone Duck videos on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Shout out, Mr.
Shout out Bunny Snipes on YouTube, baby.
Yep. I've also held the camera for a couple more that I'm not on.
Yo, dude.
It was so thank great. You for doing that. That is extremely helpful. And
we appreciate you.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate you so much. He's also one of the best cooks.
We like to have some fun times and, drink a cold beer and grill a steak. And that's all part of the outdoors, and, getting to hang out with your buddies and be around the campfire and all that's just as much as the actual hunt.
Cool. All right, buddy. Bunny, thank you so much. Everybody who tuned into this episode, I want to say thank you again. Do me a solid. Hop on the old Apple or wherever you're listening and give it the old thumbs up and leave a comment if you enjoyed the show. Appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next episode.